What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the news, data, and technicals affecting the overall market in Tesla, and how this may affect the share price going forward, and what you should be watching for tomorrow and the next upcoming week. Now, before I break anything down about this, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, whether it's $1 or $100, it's up to you. You're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Tesla's down 3.67% for the day, not doing too terrible overall, but we did see Tesla break below the important zone I was talking about. In my previous video, I told you guys that Tesla would likely pop into the open. We'd likely see Tesla try to push into like the very low 190s. Then we'd see Tesla fail and come all the way down to this 187 to 188 zone. And I told you that if Tesla failed to hold that, right, that was a very important level. If it failed, then Tesla would most likely come all the way down to fill this gap way down here around the very low 180s, so like around this 182 to 183 area. That is where Tesla actually went to today, but we haven't fully filled the gap just yet. This is telling me that Tesla might come down a little bit more tomorrow, especially because we have Bullard speaking in the morning. But very soon, we're likely going to see Tesla bounce with the market, especially going to next week, in my opinion. Now, why is that? Why might Tesla and the market bounce? That's going to happen because of the hype associated with the earnings and also because of the options chain, which I'm about to show you in a couple of minutes. But to start us off, let's talk about tomorrow and also what happened today. Today we had the PMI data that came out. This basically suggested that the economy is starting to contract even more, and our PMI reports were actually lower than expected. This means that right now in the USA, we're actually seeing many signs of a recession. And as this happens, it is actually causing some fear in the markets, at least just a little bit, but that does not guarantee that the market's just going to crash immediately or anything like that. It did slow the market down a little bit today. But for tomorrow, I just want to note that 1 hour before the market opens, we have initial jobless claims coming out. We want that number to be hot. We want a lot of initial jobless claims because, once again, we want pain in the employment sector to bring down aggregates demand and also the demand for products and services in America to help bring down inflation. That's what the market is going to want. If this is way too low, it's going to have a negative reaction from the stock market. So please be prepared for that 1 hour before the market opens. However, by the time the market opens and by the time the market is trading, no matter where we are, I just want to note that there is a risk of somewhat of a drop after the first 30 minutes because the Fed speaker Bullard is going to be talking. And when he talks, we tend to see the market drop. He's one of the most hawkish Fed members. He was very hawkish when he last spoke a couple of days ago. That did cause the market to drop even more. So just be prepared for this during the first 30 minutes of the day. But he will be done, I would say, maybe after 30 minutes to like 60 minutes or something like that. He should be done pretty fast. It won't take way too long. And the market will continue from there. Now, as far as SPY goes, I just want to note that for tomorrow, we have a lot of puts expiring. We have about 1.2 plus million puts expiring versus about 600,000 plus calls expiring with the 1.76 put to call ratio. A lot of the puts will be expiring. The market makers have max pain at 407.5. They are incentivized to try to pump the markets, but there's no guarantee it's going to happen because of how much bearish momentum there is. But I do believe going into the later weeks, maybe by next week, that's when I think the real balance could come as we get closer to earnings, because you have to remember we have a 3.2 put to call ratio, 402 is max pain, and we have the large majority of options expiring next Friday being puts. Now, please note that tomorrow is basically going to be Friday for the markets because the markets are going to be closed on Friday, and tomorrow is Thursday, the last day the market is going to be open for the week. Because on Friday, it's Good Friday, the market is going to be closed, which means tomorrow is the last day. we tend to see lots of profit taking. We could see the market just trade very flat and slow down even more. But even if that happens, I am anticipating a bounce to come later on anyways. I will talk a little bit more about that later on the charts. But first, we have to talk about Tesla right now. What's the news saying about Tesla this time? We saw lots of negative news coming out yesterday where many analysts were talking about Tesla crashing, it's being the end of Tesla and this and that. I just want to note that I'm not really in full agreement with them when it comes to Tesla crashing immediately or things like that. I'm not really in agreement of that. I think Tesla will bounce first before we do see more downside in the future. Now, when it comes to me talking about downside, I do want to note that I'm not necessarily spreading FUD or anything like that. I'm simply talking about what the articles are saying, what the short sellers are doing, how this may affect Tesla's share price in real time. I'm still very bullish long term for Tesla. I believe it's going to break all time highs. It's just going to take a while because of what the economy is going through. I want to make that clear. But remember what I said over the last couple of days. All right, going into last week, I was telling you Tesla's going to rally. We're going to see this huge pump, and that is what happened approaching deliveries. Right, the deliveries report, Tesla did not meet all expectations, and expectations were also even higher for Tesla because people were expecting it to break the current expectations set for it. Because expectations are so high, Tesla oftentimes will underperform after the reports come out, even if Tesla did well, because they did break their record with deliveries. So now I was telling you guys, Tesla would likely see more downside. I turned pretty bearish on Tesla, unfortunately, based off what the charts were telling us. It has nothing to do with my emotions or what I think about the company. I'm still very bullish, guys, longer term. I think Tesla's amazing. And I'm just saying this for the people who are new to the channel. Uh, I told you guys Tesla would likely come down 187 to 188. It did come down there, and I told you if we broke it, I'm going to be watching the very low 180s. That's exactly where Tesla went today. What I'm telling you is coming true so far. And now I'm telling you that it could drop a little bit more to finish filling the gap, but I do believe Tesla's going to be set for a really nice bounce going into next week because once again, there's going to be lots of hype for earnings season for the overall market. I will talk about that on the charts by the end of the video, but I want to talk about more news. We had another FSD update that came out, and we're actually seeing improved parking vision for the Teslas. Another update came out just, I believe, yesterday. This is once again very, very awesome news for people that have trouble parking. It gives them a lot more guidance, and it actually helps the cars park and help people park when they could actually see alerts for surrounding objects and things like that with 360 vision. Very, very cool stuff. On top of that, I want to note that there's been more updates made to the steering wheels. Once again, it could actually heat up. And once again, you have the power to now control that just by tapping on the temperature settings option and things like that. They have more language support and other big updates. Very awesome news for Tesla. They're continuing to just update us over and over again. I'm very proud of the company for that. When it comes to the news and what Elon Musk just said, he did actually tweet something important about Tesla. So there's been this lawsuit that was going on. I can't really talk or give you guys like a whole lot of detail about it. I just want to note that someone ended up getting rewarded about $3 million. That was actually what happened. They did get paid that much instead of accepting about $15 million in damages. Instead, that is what they settled with, and that's very important because Elon Musk mentioned the fact that if they allowed to introduce new evidence, the verdict would have been zero in his opinion, but he does respect the decision that the jury made. Now, I just want to note things like this are horrible. You can actually see what I'm referring to. I can't really say it on this channel, this word right here. It's horrible that things like this happen. It's just not awesome, but you just have to note that oftentimes there could be many misinterpretations of data, and not every ruling is going to be perfect, as Elon Musk is implying. However, at the same time, if that was truly the case, and the odds do favor that being a big possibility, Tesla must learn from this and improve and do what they can to improve the treatment of every single worker out there. All right, so I'm still very optimistic for Tesla. I believe Tesla is growing from issues like this, and they're going to do their best to improve. I also believe that Elon Musk and a lot of the employees are not necessarily the way that they're being painted right now, at least by the mainstream media and many outlets like that. And once again, this is a time to grow. So, anyways, going back to the technicals, I just want to note we have very low volume now, so the volume is starting to dry up. Tesla's not selling very, very hard for the time being. We are on below average volume. And on top of that, I just want to note that the short volume is starting to drop even more. As of today, it's starting to go down, which means that the selling pressure is not as strong on Tesla. That tells us that this thing could be getting set for a bit of a bounce very soon, maybe going into next week. I'm not sure about tomorrow. Maybe by the end of tomorrow it could start, but I would say more towards next week. Now, even if we do pump approaching earnings, I just want to note earnings may not be the best for us because I'm continuing to see Tesla's inventory levels just grow and grow and grow. This tells me that there's weakening demand for Teslas right now. And that means that going into Q2, deliveries may not be as great. There could be a big difference, a big change between production and deliveries. And then I'm also very worried about their margins. I'm not too confident their margins are going to be the best after all the price cuts. We'll just have to wait and see how our earnings goes. Tesla does have a tendency of surprising. So even if they do well on EPS and other factors like that, that could be good. However, we have to look at very specific details to get a better understanding of how the market's going to react and how Tesla actually did. Tesla's price price ratio is on a decline. Once again, it's underperforming compared to the market. I do believe this might actually change if the market gets a bounce, but for the time being, Tesla has some more relative weakness to it. Deutsche Bank is giving Tesla a buy rating. Once again, a lot of banks are still bullish on Tesla. And finally, we tend to be green 47% of the time on Thursdays, not always the best of days. Remember, guys, tomorrow is the last trading day of the week. Markets closed on Friday, and we could see Tesla just trade not the best on Thursday, but once again, I'm more optimistic for the week coming forward. As far as the short interest goes, we're starting to see more shorting on Tesla. We saw about 25 million shares shorted just 2 days ago. Shorts are continuing to pile in. This tells me that in the future, something else could take place. But if Tesla and the market do bounce, a lot of these shorts could also start covering, which could lead to another mini short squeeze. It is still very possible. Now, what do I think is going to happen to the markets? This is what I believe is most likely going to end up taking place. Just ignore this like Elliott wave count at the top for the time being. When it comes to SPY, I just want to note SPY is continuing to respect an uptrend. There's no confirmation that the uptrend is broken and we're crashing just yet. I believe from an Elliott wave perspective, we got wave one right here. We got a pullback for two. Wave three was very strong last week. We're currently in wave four. And we might get one last wave five for either a retest of this like 411 area. Maybe it pumps a little bit higher by the time we get to Friday of next week. That is still very possible. Always remember that we have this potential head and shoulders developing on SPY. It's kind of slanted where the neckline is. So if this develops, that would be very bearish for the markets, very bearish for Tesla going into the month of like May and June. However, there's no confirmation just yet. It is still possible for us to form like three tops as well, where this is the first top, the second top is here. We could form another top if we do break these highs. I just don't know for sure if that's going to happen just yet, but I do believe the market will try to rebound very soon anyways. Now, I don't know if SPY is going to essentially rebound from this point on, or if we're going to come down a little bit more before getting that bounce. The 0.236 retracements around this 404.65 level. It could come down a little bit more, maybe fill this first gap or something. It could most definitely do that before trying to get a bounce. This bounce does not have to be like a new high. It could be like a little bit higher than the previous high. I do believe we will get back to 411 at the very least by next week. But I do see a move like this, and I do believe this move is going to be happening because of hype associated with earnings. And I do believe this might lead Tesla to pumping a little bit next week by the time we close the week just because of hype and other factors. What am I seeing on Tesla's chart right now? Before the bounce comes, I do believe Tesla's likely going to see some downside. We might see Tesla come down to the very lower 180s. We need to hold this and try to bounce off of this. I'm thinking that Tesla's in a process where it's going to be basing. If 180 doesn't hold and there is 176 to 177, we do have some very nice support there. So somewhere around here, I believe Tesla will try to hold. As long as Tesla could hold around this 180 zone, the very low 180s, it's going to be fine for next week. And if the market does get that counter trend rally, which I believe it most likely will, then Tesla has the potential to bounce. I don't know if Tesla's going to bounce tomorrow at the end of the day or something like that. But going into next week, once again, it most definitely still can. But please be prepared for a little bit more downside first before the bounce comes. I am seeing Tesla getting closer to this 180 zone. We did come to about 183 today. I'm going to be watching this very carefully, and I do believe this will be correlated with the overall market. All right. Now, when it comes to SPY, I'm not too sure how low it's going to go, but I just want to show you guys this channel. The SPY has been in for quite a while. It's been going back and forth for quite a while. If we do end up coming to the lower end of the channel, that's going to take us to around this 403 to 404 zone. I believe we're most likely going to see this thing hit around this 403 to 404 area, or we could just bounce off like the 405s. We did hit 405 today, so it's very likely we're getting closer to our temporary bottom before getting a counter trend bounce. This could be wave 5 from an Elliott wave perspective. That's happening next week with another pump going into earnings. So I don't know if we're going to come down here then try to bounce. I mean, we may have already bottomed, but if we haven't bottomed, if we break the lows from today, watch this gap get filled on SPY and watch us try to hit these like lower 400s and then try to bounce. It's most likely going to be one of those two. Please watch it very carefully. If we do get a really nice bounce, it's going to help Tesla. I believe the odds do favor that for next week. I'm going to just talk about a couple of tickers today, guys. I have very limited time right now. For the QQQ, I believe the QQQ is likely going to come down to fill this gap. It might drop a little bit more and then try to bounce because the MACD is showing me some weakening momentum on the sell side, and the RSI is trying to actually once again show some strength after this bounce. I don't know if this thing is going to try to hold this trend line, which is a very important support, and then try to keep bouncing from here, or if this thing comes down a little bit to fill this gap all the way down to this like 312, 310 zone and then try to bounce. We're most likely going to see it either drop a little bit more than get the move we want to see by next week, or it might just continue to hold this trend line and then start uptrending going into tomorrow, right? Could go either way, but I do believe the odds favor a bounce coming soon by the time we get to next week. Amazon, same thing. I'm just going to talk about a couple of these, by the way. Amazon, it's showing some weakness. It actually rejected very close to my prediction, which is around this 105 zone. We actually rejected off 104.2. We might see this thing fill the gap around this 100. If that fails, we have strong support around 98. Between 98 and 100, Amazon will most likely bounce, but it's first going to come down before the bounce comes. So don't forget that. I've seen the market pulling back a bit before we get to see a very big move. So please be ready for that. NVIDIA, this thing is once again, it actually bounced off this 264 support. That's the support I was talking about previously. I don't know if it's going to come down to retest and then try to bounce, but it looks to me like it's going to try to come back up to this 274 zone. That's where we have the gap. I think that's going to happen next week. For Apple, this thing might come down to retest the support zone right here to fill this gap very close to this 160, then try to bounce as we do have another gap all the way up here around this 165, or it might just try to keep going. Once again, we're starting to show some signs of the market showing some strength. We're not completely collapsing right here. Meta's looking a little bit distributive, might come down to this 208, then try to get a bounce. Please be ready for that as well. Finally, for the dollar, I just want to note that the dollar is a little green, but it's still trading sideways. It might try to form an inverse head and shoulders. I mean, it's a possibility. It could try to come up a little bit more as the market drops more, and then it might try to trade sideways. That will affect Tesla. And then for the daily, I just want to note that we're still relatively weak. There's no clear sign of it bouncing just yet. I think this bounce on the dollar will take a little longer. 10-year Treasury yield is showing the same thing. Big downtrend. It should try to bounce off 32.5. I'm still waiting for it to bounce. We do have this gap above. Once it bounces, that could be a sign that the market might actually drop a little bit more off a bounce, and then it might just continue to downtrend, which once again could be a little bullish for the markets later on. All right, so I'm not really talking just about tomorrow. I'm talking more about like the next week for Tesla. For tomorrow, make sure you watch the more like bearish case, which is going to be a retest of this 180, trying to hold 180. If that fails, then there's 177 to 176. That's going to be the more bearish case for Tesla. The more bullish case is going to be a break to the upside, a retest of the hourly 200 DMA around 189 to 190. If it breaks that, there's a gap above at 191, followed by 193. Make sure you watch these levels very carefully on Tesla. What am I thinking is going to happen? I think Tesla might drop a little bit more with the NASDAQ and the QQQ, might come down to fill this gap we could actually get closer to 180. And around here, I think Tesla's going to try to base. And we might try to bounce at the end of the day tomorrow, or by the time we get to next week, I think that's when Tesla might bounce. By the time we see like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tesla should try to get back well above 190, going into the higher 190s, if not to fill this gap way up here going into next week, maybe a little bit after next week too, as we get closer to earnings. I think it's going to rally again as we approach earnings, and I think we're getting very close to that. So please be ready, guys. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.